Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast, and as you can hear, once again I am your illustrious host for this episode. I am Sully, and I'm joined today with Ryan.
Hello.
Tobias.
That's me.
And our special guest podcaster for this episode, the always fabulous John.
Hello, and yes, I am still alive.
I couldn't think of an adjective to describe you, so I went with fabulous, but I guess alive, yeah, that works pretty well, doesn't it?
We always say bootyful.
Bootyful.
He is bootyful.
John.
Exactly. And it's been a while since I've been on any of these podcasts, so, I just want to reassure everybody at home that, yes, I still am around and still do things.
Yeah.
We did not bury him, as people have been asking. He is very much alive and very much above surface. This episode, we're going to be talking about the 1989-1990 Devilman OVAs. But first, we have some convention plugs to start with. Third Impact Anime is going to be at Playthrough, which is a video game con, in March 29th and 31st. Tobias, I think you can tell us a little more about that one.
Yeah, so myself and Ryan and Edwin and Will, a.k.a. the Mid-Shelf Gaming Crew, we will all be in Raleigh there for that convention. It's just a 2-day con there, that Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be providing a good portion, if not the majority, of their speaker content, as we do, as Third Impact and now Mid-Shelf Gaming are now known for, knowing way too much about nerd stuff. So if you're going to be, so if you're going to be in the Raleigh area later in March here, feel free to swing by, come check it out. It's a fun little convention. We've been there the past few years. It's not this huge overblown affair that most people think of when they come to the RCC for Animazement, but it still is a nice little gaming centric convention.
Especially if you're a gamer. There aren't honestly too many gaming conventions around nowadays. So, ones that are affordable or that actually do fun things besides just have press rooms. This one actually has board game rentals. It had an escape room last year. It had a bunch of indie developers come in and show off their stuff, and they were a lot of fun to play, as well as dealers and, as we mentioned, panelists and a ton of tournaments. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually helping Extra Life Raleigh run a few playthrough this year.
Nice.
And speaking of the Raleigh Convention Center, one of our big cons, we're actually going to split between two cons this year, both on Memorial Day weekend, Animazement in Raleigh, North Carolina, and MomoCon in Georgia. So I think that, Ryan, you're kind of leading the charge with the half of us who are going to Momo, and then Austin's kind of leading the rest of us going to Animazement. So if you're going to either of those, we're bound to be there. I know that Kotono Mitsuishi, the original voice actress for Sailor Moon and Excel Saga, has been announced for a guest at Animazement, so I will be there with bells on.
Yep.
Yeah. Marissa, myself, Will, and Edwin are going down to Momo. We're going to be doing a bunch of panels there. I don't know which yet because we haven't gotten our list back, but we gave them pretty much all of the ones that we felt like doing and told them pick one or pick 7 and get back to us.
At this point with cons, we kind of just hand them our panel repertoire and give them sort of carte blanche to pick whatever they want us to do for programming.
Basically, yeah.
So that kind of covers the cons we're going to be going to, but how are the rest of you been doing? So, what are you up to? We'll start with you, Ryan.
I'm chugging away on Mid-Shelf Gaming. We're working on episode 3 right now, but due to a unknown illness that has been plaguing me for 2 weeks, I haven't had the energy to edit. So finally, I'm on antibiotics, and I'm going to be sucking on a cough drop for the entirety of this podcast, so we're not interrupted with me dying into the microphone. But other than that, I've been good, just, doing my thing.
And you, Tobias?
Yeah, kind of same old. I'm still, at this point, just kind of doing panel prep here, coming up for the upcoming couple conventions that we'll be at there. I've got a bit of a work to do on that here, but other than that, continuing to be terrible and not catch up on the winter season of anime. Unfortunately, I'm still plugging away at the Sailor Moon group watch on Twitter. We just made it episode 45, and I'm still enjoying that. In spite of not watching any modern anime, unfortunately.
Modern anime is overrated.
Yeah. Other than that, just kind of hanging out, doing my thing as usual.
And me and you are actually planning on doing a Go Nagai panel at Animazement this year.
Yeah, that's true. We submitted a Go Nagai panel, so hopefully that'll pan out, and we'll talk a little bit more about Devilman and Cutie Honey and all of the other Go Nagai's really bombastic, crazy works.
And John, what have you been up to? Because you're kind of like the third Impact cryptid at this point.
Yeah, I have been kind of absent for a while. Well, when I'm not working at my day job, I am currently working towards my pilot license. As of right now, I'm working for my private. I'm hoping to be done by May. Weather this weekend wasn't good, so it's just a bunch of learning. But as far as anime stuff goes, I'll actually be working in the main events portion of Anime Central. I found that out 2 days ago, so I'm pretty excited about that. And hopefully I'll be able to do more big stuff at stuff like Momo and stuff around here, depending on how it goes. We'll see.
So are you going to fly the plane into Anime Central, or...
I am not legally allowed to talk about that at this time, but I cannot deny that could be my intention.
So it's sort of a combination of the Leslie Nielsen movie Airplane and Otaku, and it's going to be fun. Can't wait to see how that pans out.
It's going to basically be like John Plane.
Exclamation point.
There you go.
The entire movie is going to be him in the cockpit just making John faces. I would
90 minutes well spent.
What do you mean 90 minutes? That movie's going to be 3 hours. I would pay a lot of money to watch that movie.
To be fair, I would too.
If you want that movie, we can make that happen.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we gotta get those merchandising rights out. As for me, I'm actually watching anime again. I'm not finished with Cheers, technically. I know everyone's like, on pins
You're never
and needles.
finished with Cheers.
Well, I finished, again, this is the first time I've ever seen it, but I'm watching it with a friend, and I made it to the end, and the end of the series is a 3-part finale, and he's like, don't watch that, we have to watch it together. So, I'm basically done, until he decides that he's caught up. But I'm actually now, I've watched 11 seasons of live action. I'm done. I want cartoons again. So I've been watching this older Tatsunoko show called Urashiman, which is on High Dive if you're interested. And it's made right during the period where Tatsunoko almost went broke. So this is them kind of trying to climb back up into anime, and so I've really gotten into that. It's this weird combination of futuristic, 80s retrofuturism, and then the villains are all Art Deco German silent movie villains. It's really weird, and I've been watching that, and I started watching Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, because a friend of mine was going on and on about it, and I've heard about it a lot, so I finally sat down and watched that. And I'm also back on watching Maison Ikoko, so I'm juggling 3 shows, and I'm sure there's a 4th one that I started and I cannot remember. So I'm actually doing a good job in watching anime, and I know that I need to start watching Mob Psycho season 2, because that's the one show that's on right now that I have even a passing interest in. I know that Tatsunoko
You say that, but there are actually a significant amount of shows that I have an interest in this season, and that's weird for me. I never actually watch stuff that's currently airing because I always think that there's too much, and I never am able to actually figure out if there's something I was going to like. But being that I was sick for the past 2 weeks, I had a lot of time. So I've been watching a ton of stuff that's airing this season, and Mob Psycho, ironically enough, is the only one I can't watch because it gives me a migraine.
I mean, that animation is just so colorful and vibrant.
It's amazing, and I really wish I could watch it, but it kills me.
Yeah, I can see how it could. I say that, but there's also one show that just got a preview released, and it's by Tatsunoko. And I don't know the basic plot, but I know that my beloved Doranjo, my favorite anime character of all time, and Go Mifune from Speed Racer are traveling the Wild West together as bandits. And I don't know why or how this works, but I have to see it, and I'm just praying it's not as bad as Yatterman of the Night. If it's just not that terrible, and they don't ruin Doranjo anymore, and they've already ruined her, I will watch it, even if it's her in the Wild West with Speed Racer. So, I mean, it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Are you guys watching or playing anything?
Yeah, I'm playing a lot. We'll be here all day for that. I actually started playing the Division 2 beta today, and I'm really enjoying that. Played it with a friend for like 5 hours, and we had a bunch of fun. I've also been replaying the Final Fantasy IV collection on PSP, because God knows my PSP needed some love, because I haven't given it any in the entire time I've had it. And watching-wise, though, I'm actually, like I said, I'm watching a lot of stuff. I'm watching Promised Neverland, which I've never, like, fallen in love with the show so quickly and needed to know what happened immediately next. Like, it's so good, and I don't want to say too much because I want anybody who's going to watch it to go in blind. And I'm just going to leave that one at that. But I've also been watching My Roommate is a Cat. And if you have ever owned a cat or lived with a cat, you need to watch this show because you will relate to it on a spiritual level, like I have. I've also been watching Dororo on Amazon Prime, and apparently that is based off of like a very old anime I found out, and is apparently getting a stage play adaptation in Japan, which is honestly kind of tweaking my interest a little bit because I feel like that would be really cool to see. That show's really good. And I'm also watching Kaguya-sama Love is War, which is just a fun little slice of life rom-com about two people who have feelings for each other but are both too big-headed to admit it, so they try to make the other person do it in like very absurd ways and like carry out elaborate plots that never end well for them.
How about you, Tobias?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, slowly catching up on Sailor Moon through that weekly group watch, and other than that, just my casual watch time has been taken up by Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I just hit season 3 just this weekend, and slowly working my way through that.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is God.
Yeah, no, it's the best anime. To be fair,
yeah. Andy Samberg does a fantastic job as Jake Peralta.
Yeah. And you know Terry loves anime.
He's the best voice actor on that show.
But yeah, I just got around to finally watching Sorry to Bother You today as well. Back when it came out in theaters, none of the local theaters had it at all. So I just noticed it was on Hulu just randomly and sat down to finally watch that. And yeah, it's a really super great film. All of you should check that out for sure. It did not go anywhere near what I expected it was going to go. For those of you who've seen it, know exactly what I'm talking about. But you should definitely check that out. Don't miss Sorry to Bother You. I don't think it was nominated for anything in the Oscars, unfortunately, but it definitely should have.
Yeah. Can we actually backtrack 1 second back to you said Terry loves anime? Have you gotten to any of the Otaku Terry parts of that show yet?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, my God. I don't remember when they start because I binge watched that show all in like one sitting, and so it all blends together for me. But there are certain parts where like it flashes back to when Terry like lived in Japan, and he speaks like really good Japanese. It was like a complete otaku. It's really funny. Like Otaku Terry moments are like my bread and butter. They were so funny.
You know, like you mentioned, like Andy Samberg is like a really great lead. Of course, Terry Crews opposite him, and like everyone else on that there just is really great. Like I've always really enjoyed that. I like The Office and Parks and Rec style of sitcom. They're just very easy junk food type shows, but there's not just junk food. You know, like there's a lot of really good character moments there between these individual people, and the way they go through these shows is still fairly endearing and still pretty worthwhile. So I'm really enjoying it. All the recommendations people have given, you know, over the past couple of years, finally convinced me to sit down with it and give it a watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Jan, are you watching anything? Hopefully not while flying a plane.
No, unfortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch stuff. I have been playing things, though. I had finished Kingdom Hearts 3 a little while back and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I know had come out a while ago, but I just could not find the time for it, and I finally did this year and finished that up. I had gotten on an Ace Combat binge for a while, and I've just wrapped up all of that. And the next thing I'm looking at is doing the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's been looking really, really good. I've enjoyed the 500% animation videos because that is just like right up my alley. I love them so much. And aside from that, I'm not sure what else to look out for just yet. So it's been kind of slow this year for games. I've been kind of disappointed. So we'll see.
It's only March.
Yeah, I know. I guess since the last 2 years have been so fire, I'm just kind of like...
No, I was talking about this with Will and Edwin. We're actually very glad that we're kind of in a desert right now, because we know there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming, and we are actually appreciating the time we're getting to work on our backlogs.
Yeah, that's true.
And, like, to just play some casual stuff. Like, the other thing I've been playing, actually, is I've been playing the hell out of Tetris 99.
Yeah, I noticed. You lost your mind when they announced that. Oh,
I was so happy. And, like, I don't like battle royales too much. Like, I enjoy them, but as a concept, they're kind of getting overplayed. And then, like, when I saw 99 players, I was like, oh, great, Nintendo's making a battle royale now. And for a minute, I was like, you know what? This could be Waluigi's game. But then... Because we've had a joke about that for a long time, that Waluigi's game is going to be a shooter. But,
oh, God.
But, so instead, it was Tetris Battle Royale, and I was just like, yup, I am so on board for that, because I love Tetris, and I'm really good at it. I have not won yet, but I've gotten third place. The game is really hard to win for a various amount of luck factors, but it's hard, but I love it. It's so much fun. I still am waiting for them to release a proper Tetris on the Switch, though. Which, by the way, as of recording today, the Switch has officially turned 2 years old.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And today was also the second anniversary of Breath of the Wild.
Well, yeah. Switch
Which
turned twos.
Yes, but I bring that up because I still have not finished it. Because every time I play it, I end up just, running around Hyrule doing nothing.
Sticking around for hours.
That's the point. It's a fun game to just do stuff.
It sounds to me like you've beaten it. You've accomplished exactly what you set out to do. Nothing.
I have set fire to every bush in Hyrule because it's just fun. I have a pyromantic streak that this game allows me to explore, and my therapist is probably going to be very interested to hear me say that.
No, I mean, it's a great game. Like, it's so much fun. And I remember the first night it came out, I literally stayed up until 5 the weekend of Triad. Came in, John and I whipped out our Switches, we're playing it in line, and these two guys were like, oh my god, is that a Switch? And we were like, yeah. And they're like, can I see it? And I was like, yeah, look with your eyes. And then at the flea market...
First night, man, we couldn't put that game down for months, man. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, but like... there was also, at the flea market, I was playing my Switch, and I had a sign out that said, if you buy something, I'll let you play Zelda for 5 minutes.
There you go.
They worked a couple times.
That's the difference between me and you, Ryan, because I believe never bring anything to a con that you're not prepared to lose. The Mr. Krabs, mantra. So as much as the Switch is made for portability, I'm terrified to bring it anywhere, because if someone stole it, I would roam the streets with a machete ready to cut off their hands myself. Because
here's the thing about that. When I bring my Switch with me outside, if I do not know where it is at all times, then yes, that instinct will kick in. But 9 times out of 10, it is touching me. So
appropriately, I hope.
Talking about the Devilman OVAs, 1987's Devilman The Birth, and 1990's The Demon Bird Sirin. So these OVAs are not exactly based on the original manga. They are actually based on a novelization of the manga by Yasutaka Nagai, who is actually Go Nagai's brother. And they are the directorial debut of Umanosuke Ida, who also was one of the directors on Hellsing, and he's mostly known for his storyboard work on Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, Big O, Cowboy Bebop, Lupin the Third Part 3. He has done a lot of stuff in anime in the brief time that he worked in it, and it's kind of funny that Go Nagai actually consistently compared him to Totoro for some reason. That was just a weird way that Nagai would frequently refer to him. And when I say brief, he actually passed away in 2010. So he was a storyboard artist, he was a director. He basically had his hand in every part of the production aspect for various influential anime. And Tobias, if you want to jump in here at any point, I know that both me and you both kind of did most of the research for this episode because we're very into the Nagai oeuvre.
Yeah, I think you covered it for the most part. Ida, like you said, mostly known for storyboard stuff. He did direct Hellsing, and I think like his studio, O Production, the main animation studio, with doing these OVAs there, and I think we'll talk more about them here in a second with the character designs.
It's kind of interesting that Devilman, throughout its history, has frequently been an adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation, because it started off as Demon Lord Dante, which was a manga that Go Nagai wrote, and then Toei came to him and said, hey, could you write another manga that we could turn to an anime that's more kid-friendly? And then he wrote it, and he made that Devilman, and then they're like, still not kid-friendly, don't know if you got the memo.
Not good enough.
So they went to Masaaki Tsuji, who was a science fiction writer and novelist and screenwriter that actually was friends with the guy, and they worked together to kind of soften the premise into the 72 anime. And one of the biggest visual differences, obviously, is just the design of Devilman himself, because in the original manga, he's, this muscular, fleshy thing. He's got like a red and black color scheme. He has like a furry bottom, like a hairy centaur look, and then in the 72
like
anime, and then in the 72 anime, he's like blue and red and has like shark fin wings, and he looks like he's made out of foam rubber. So like they basically it's a completely different story. The 72 anime is basically like almost like a Super Sentai show, because every episode is, this demon is after Miki, I better go beat them up. And there's no Ryo. There's like some other guy named Himura who's like brunette Ryo, but not as interesting. He has like a cult following apparently in the fandom. And one of the like demon generals, who's just not really that major of a character in the manga, or is more like a side character, is now the main villain, because you can't have Satan in a kids show, I guess, even in Japan. So like, just the fact that, like, even here, where it's closer to the manga, it's still technically an adaptation of a novelization of the manga. It's just kind of funny to me, because it's like, Devilman, in and of itself, has never really been original in one way or the other.
I think it's kind of the truth for all of Nagai's stuff. To mention Devilman, the new manga, which is based on this older manga, which has these varied, adaptations through the years. They're all kind of separate from each other. And that's kind of been the case for a lot of his other stuff. The Cutie Honeys got a couple different versions over time. Mazinger, of course, got all these other like offshoots, like Getarobo, all in the same like DNA. It's mecha DNA that are all sort of based on something. And I think that kind of this has this atmosphere of while I would say Go Nagai certainly has is known for his work. I don't think he's quite as known as some of the other big names in the anime and manga industry, just because of that.
And I think part of it too is just you can see his influences in all the adaptation. I mean, his creature designs in all the Devilman series, or his mech designs, or even sort of the character designs like Cutie Honey. There's bits and pieces of that in every adaptation, but and I kind of like that, because it kind of reminds me of characters like Western comics. So many writers have written Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, and there's that same thread that kind of links them along, but everyone kind of has their own idea of how they should be written. His brother, Yasutaka Nagai, has his idea of how Devilman should be, and Masaaki Tsuji, he has his idea of how the Devilman anime should be. And, it's kind of like these characters work because they are kind of versatile and flexible, although at the same time, I do have this image of my head of Nagai bringing the first 2 or 3 chapters of Devilman to Toei Studios, and they just look at it and look at him and say, what is wrong with you? Because, again, his stuff is so off the wall, and so he loves flirting with taboo subjects and really kind of pushing the envelope that, sometimes you have to think Toei had to know what they were getting into, asking him to do something. I mean, they saw Cutie Honey. I think Cutie Honey came first. No, wait, it was 73, so still, they had to know.
Yeah, and a lot of Nagai's stuff always has this like a hint of ecchi. When we think of like ecchi stuff now, it's all softcore porn. But even then, it's just these almost like erotic jokes. Like his first major work, Harenchi Gakuen, were just like this kind of like semi-perverted jokes. I kind of think that we see a lot of that later, like in Takashi's Ranma, for instance, or even Urusei Yatsura, where it's almost this kind of the perverted humor.
It kind of makes me think of like if Osamu Tezuka grew up reading nothing but Playboy and Mad Magazine, you would have Go Nagai.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that Devilman specifically is like, it's got a lot of like porny elements to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like, it's not like, well, okay, it is like horny at some points, but like at other points it's like just Miki was naked in a bathtub and got possessed by a demon and she just happened to be naked. But other times it's like they're literally like, I can't say that on the podcast. They're doing adult things in the middle of a nightclub because they're that like degenerate and trying to summon demons.
I mean, Nagai, in almost everything he's written or come up with, does have this element of, he kind of is like the dirty old man demographic, given the wheel to the bus to drive us wherever he feels like going. And like for me, I'm not really into Cutie Honey getting naked in every episode, but it has a camp feel to it. Like for me, it's like, of course she loses her clothes. It's it's silly, as someone who isn't really into women, it's still appealing and sort of, like I said, a camp kitsch, sort of that, oh, it's the 70s, it's everyone's kind of doing it sort of way. I mean, some people, I guess, would be more uncomfortable because he is not prudish in any way. He does kind of let it all hang out in every sense of the phrase, but I think if you kind of go in more of a sort of, okay, I'm just in for this ride, you kind of let loose. I mean, we all watched this OVA together pretty much, and just watching it with friends, just it was like being on a roller coaster because you never knew what was going to happen next. And same thing with every remake or adaptation of Devilman or Kitty Honey, it's you don't know what's going to happen, even if you've seen the basic story, several times over.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of figured it would happen similarly. Granted, this one was different. My only exposure is Crybaby and like a very minuscule chunk of the manga I read just out of curiosity, but then when I saw the plot was pretty much the same thing, I was just like, I'm not going to read something I just watched and have it rip my heart out again. But I was interested in watching the OVAs just to see how the style aged, and also Akiro's much more of a wimp in Crybaby, hence the name. And in this, he actually seemed to be like a competent human being for at least most of it. And
oh, sorry.
Yeah, minus like a couple parts, but like it was interesting seeing the contrast. But like, yeah, I thought it like both had their merits and both had advantages and disadvantages. But I was glad that I watched both, in all honesty.
I went into this completely blind, so I had no idea what to expect from this.
Oh boy, yeah, John just he was
just jumped right in.
we should have. Oh, poor John. Before we like jump into the OVAs themselves, I think we should finish going over some of this production stuff. Kazuo Komasubara, he was the guy who did the original 72 Devilman character designs, and he did them again, so he kind of readapted them and made them closer to the manga for this production. He also was the character designer and animation director on the set, like I said, on the 72, but he also did Harlock and Galaxy Express 999, and his Studio O production was the one who animated the OVAs. Animated, It's like laminated, but anime. So there is some sort of pedigree with this production. They did bring other people from the history of the franchise in, and the music was by Kenji Kawai, who would later do music for Blue Seed and Ghost in the Shell, and the live-action Death Note movies, along with When They Cry and Now, going back full circle. He's also done Mob Psycho 100, so he's still working.
Yeah.
So from now on, from now on, can I petition that whenever a manga, or anything for that matter, gets an anime adaptation, we now say it's animated?
No, I will not allow my goof to go on and live in eternity, so no.
Yeah, but no, Castlevania recently got animated.
Austin, edit that out,
I love
please.
anime.
Oh. So these OVAs, they really only cover the first part of the Devilman story. There were 3 more planned, but they dropped. The third installment, they were going to give them a budget of 120 million yen, but the director was kind of like, that's not enough for me to do what I want. So it kind of went quiet for a while. There is a 2000 OVA done by Kenichi Takashita, the Amon Apocalypse of Devilman OVA, and it was meant to be a sequel, but it's like an entirely different art style and part of a different OVA series. So it's like smack dab in the middle of an entirely different series of OVAs, and it's like known for being kind of terrible. Like the dub is awful, the plot is all over the place, so like even though it's meant to be a continuation of these, it's kind of been jettisoned into history. The closest thing to a sequel to these is CB Kara Go Nagai World, which is basically a chibi OVA series of every character from Go Nagai's franchises meeting, and basically it's like a weird OVA slice of life, chibi, cutesy. It's something, but it was also directed by Ida, and it's done by the same production studio, so it's like, if you want a palate cleanser after the absolute madness it is, The Birth and Devil Bird Sirin, I would say go for the chibi version.
Honestly, I didn't think that the OVAs had as much madness going on. Yeah, there was a little bit, but all in all, it was relatively tame compared to the entirety of the show.
Yeah, Crybaby, I mean, Crybaby and the OVAs, while they certainly share the same story and DNA, and they're based on the Gaia works, they do have a lot of differences in kind of the tone that they're trying to set. Like, I think the OVAs kind of had the feeling of like a bad 80s B action movie where they're just so ballistic and loud and over the top that you're never really given those sort of deep character moments because it's too busy trying to wow you with like weird visuals and like lots of yelling and screaming and over the top fight scenes. So I mean, they're very different. I would not go into this thinking that you're going to see an exact duplicate of Crybaby, just done in a different art style.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
Going through the cast, this time Akira / Devilman is played by Sho Hayami, who is most famous for being Wolfwood in Trigun, and going back to one of my early anime viewing habits, Murake in Yami no Matsui / Descendants of Darkness, so that's kind of coming back into my past.
Yeah. As far as the English cast here, a lot of these were all done through Manga UK back then, so they all kind of share a lot of similar roles. I noticed that they all had parts in Mad Bull 34 and Megazone 2-3 Part 3, and I think a lot of these had roles also in X, the movie. I think like X 1999, one of those classic movies you heard a lot about if you were a fan back in the early 2000s. But I think one of those like early Clamp works. But specifically, Akira is voiced by Alan Marriott, who has got a lot of work recently in more like children's entertainment, including like Ninjago, some of the Ninjago TV or movies or whatnot. I'm not really a fan of that myself, but looking over his IMDb list, you see there's a lot of recent children's television roles.
Yeah, I don't think Ninjago is kind of aimed at our demographic.
That's definitely true.
So it's not Ninja Go Nagai.
God damn it.
You're welcome.
Sully. Well, that's the new name of the episode, I guess.
Either that or Emanated Ninja Go Nagai.
Stop, please. I beg of you.
So I'm going to remind you of the rule of the internet. The more you ask people to stop, the less likely it's going to happen.
Anyway, Ryo is voiced by Yu Mizushima, who he's most known for me for voicing Hikaru in Otasuke-man, which is one of the Time Boken series. He plays the titular Otasuke-man. And he's also Luigi in the Mario anime, which I really want us to cover one day. Like, him and...
Like the Mario Brothers Super Show?
No, there is a 1 hour Mario anime done by Grouper, who's like a subsidiary of Toei, and Tuxedo Mask and Yamcha's voice actor is Mario, and then he is Luigi, and he's also been Luigi, I think, in other, like, Nintendo Japanese voiced products, so, like... Look, I know way too much about this, and I demand we do an episode on it, but just remember that Ryo could possibly be in his own version of Luigi's Mansion. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Huh.
Can we have the, like, I want so many crossovers of, like, Luigi's Mansion. Like, I want Castlevania meets Luigi's Mansion just because of that Smash trailer. Can we get this one too? Like, Devilman meets Luigi's Mansion?
JoJo's
where you
Bizarre
go around as Luigi and hunt demons
with Devilman.
Yeah, with Devilman as like your sidekick, or just turn Luigi into Devilman, even better.
Oh my gosh.
Luigi Man Crybaby.
I mean, you're halfway there already with Luigi.
Yeah. So Akira, like, once he does this, the whole summoning ceremony, he turns into Luigi instead of the devil.
No.
I'd watch that.
So apparently,
you wouldn't watch that.
So apparently, Ryo's English voice actor is
so
staff
his
on...
English voice actor is Adam Madelon, who, like I said, also played a role in Megazone 2-3 Part 3. Also a role in New Dominion Tank Police from 1995. And just like Alan has kind of moved on from doing just anime into various things, he does a lot of staff. Like, he's got a couple of directorial roles under his belt for things like American Pickers, and he was a stagehand on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in 2009. So you don't see that a lot with these voice actors moving on into very different roles.
So can Devilman fight Regis Philbin then? Final answer.
All right, Devilman, put him up. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The name of the fight between Devilman and Regis Philbin.
Who wants to be a Devilman?
Miki is voiced by Jungkyu Yamaki, and this is pretty much her only role. Like, I looked on several different databases, and pretty much the only thing she's ever done is Miki Makamura in the Devilman OVAs and then the Chibi one. So, I hope she's doing okay. Maybe she found out that, I mean, it's not that uncommon to find some people who might have done voice acting as, like, something they did while they were trying to find another role. Maybe it's a stage name and she's a live action actress now and she used a different name when she... I mean, it's a mystery. The mystery of Miki.
I mean...
Lupin the Third and the mystery of Miki.
Yeah, nowadays it's like you have to... We have 1.5 billion people asking every single voice actor who comes to a con, how do I become a voice actor? Meanwhile, this one was just like, I guess I could be a voice actor if it'll pay the bills.
And her English equivalent is Larissa Murray, who again had a role in Mad Bull 34, but is also the role of Alita or Gally in the UK dub of Battle Angel, which
nice.
pretty topical now.
I remember that when I worked at the vintage store I did for my internship, someone used to bring in old VHS tapes, and one of them was Mad Bull 34. And I think I gave it to Austin or one of our friends, and I'm like, well, I should have watched it, because apparently all of these Devilman actors just were in this one, because I think it was the English dub. It had a big sticker on it that said dub on like a big pink letter, so it was just...
Was Devilman the Mad Bull 34 reunion, or was Mad Bull 34 the Devilman reunion?
I mean, Mad Bull 34 came out in like 93, maybe 94, 5. So like I think it is later, because this came out in 89 and or 87 and 80 and 1990. I keep forgetting there's a 3-year gap between the two OVAs. I mean, you really had to be patient if you were wanting to know what happens after the first one. Sarin is voiced by Yoshika Sakakibara. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce anything today. She's, for me, again, most famous for being Nehelania in Sailor Moon Supers. She's Project 2501 in Ghost in the Shell 2.0, Integra in Hellsing, and L in the first Urasayatsura movie, Only You. So she's kind of got quite a few voices under her belt that's really well known. I probably pronounced the Project 2501. It might be 2000 501. I don't know. I haven't seen Ghost in the Shell 2.0.
Yeah, and her English equivalent is Lisa Ross, credited on this release as Lucy Franks, who also had roles in Violent Jack, Wicked City, again Mad Bull 34, and also We're Back, a dinosaur story.
Yeah, I always want to know the story behind voice actors who have, like, credits under multiple names. It's like, did you get married, or did you change your name because you are, like, evading some, like, Turkish mafia, in which case, make an anime about it, because it sounds like it'd be a great story.
From what I understand, people will take on different stage names to do different work just because of how, like if you're doing commercials, like commercial voiceover, you might want to have a different sort of resume, and if you're doing anime, you might want to have a different voice, because it's just like a weird, like, brand thing for some people. And some people they don't want to be known under a certain voice because it gets stalkers. I remember reading, it was a completely unrelated article, but was more like talking about people who suffer from stalking, and the woman who did anime voices was basically stalked out of the profession because every time she changed her name in a production, the person managed to find her. It was very disturbing. So, I mean, there's a variety of reasons people might want to use different stage names for different aspects of their career.
Oh, I'm sure. And I make jokes, but in all honesty, yeah, I'm sure it's, like, something not, like, to be laughed at if it's actually a serious matter. But, like, yeah, having different stage name, like, if I did like commercials or something, I would probably not use my real name.
For sure. And when we look at these kind of OVAs like Devilman and Violent Jack, I definitely could see them wanting to just distance themselves for this type of work compared to, again, like We're Back, this very much a children's film as opposed to these hyper-violent OVAs.
I mean, even anime was kind of a niche thing, and it had this, you know, as Mystery Science Theater put it, I have to run and get my violent porn comics. I mean, it had that reputation. I could see why, you know, they would use a separate name for any anime production that they did voice work on in, you know, the early 90s. It's just kind of a, you know, I did it and it paid the bills and I'm not going to any cons or anything. I'm just, you know, doing it to, you know,
do it.
Yep, put bread on the table. So we've gone over the crew and the cast. Do we want to dive into Devilman The Birth, which is the first OVA from 1987?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, since me and Tobias and Ryan had already seen Crybaby, and I had some familiarity with Devilman too, because after Crybaby I went to read the manga. John, you have no experience with any of Go Nagai's work, and nothing.
That's correct.
Nothing at all with Devilman. You, as sort of the virgin here to to the Nagai world, what did you think of the first OVA, The Birth?
Wow, that's a very interesting way to get your series started, because it was basically 40 minutes of almost nothing, and then 10 minutes of where are we? Like, if I had to sum up the first OVA, it would be about this kid, Greg, who got tricked into eating
Greg?
some LSD. Yeah, Greg. I don't remember the names of these characters, so I'm just going with
Use
it.
the cast list in the notes.
No, I want to hear John's naming system here. So we have
we have John's
Greg.
4 Kids adaptation.
Yeah. We'll just assume that this is the official 4 Kids dub.
So Greg, who has this guy, his friend named Frank, who tricks him into eating some LSD before taking him to his mansion and then have him hallucinate all these monsters just appearing out of nowhere. And so as a joke, he takes him to his underground rave party, feeds him an even stronger dose of LSD he hasn't tested yet. He goes crazy, thinks he becomes Devilman and everybody else is transformed, and just murders the crap out of people. And that's the first OVA.
Okay.
Greg and Frank,
It's almost like an anti-drug PSA that the government made to show, like, and this is why you don't do drugs. That's what kind of what it felt like.
So John has it mostly right, yeah. Except instead of, you know, LSD, it is a demonic mask.
Yes.
One thing that always strikes me as funny is in the manga, and in this one too, just, you know, how how Ryo gets Akira to wear the mask is basically just insisting, and Akira's like, I don't want to wear it. Do it. Like, it's very
Put on the mask, Shinji.
Yeah, basically, it's not very. He's not very good at convincing him so much as he is just saying, like, we gotta move the plot along. Put on the mask. So it's just kind of funny to see this animated, because Ryan, you mentioned that you wanted to see how the animation style differed, and you know, I think when we were watching it, you called it kind of like a Ghibli movie, and that's not too far off. It's very soft and rounded and fluid.
Yeah. It was very 80s, and it reminded me of Miyazaki a lot, just based on the style alone. But also, their hairstyle was a very big thing, where like they both had like pumps and had poofy hair, whereas in the Crybaby adaptation, Akira had spiky hair. He was basically like your average emo anime protagonist with spiky hair that was out of the 2000s.
And Ryo was a K-pop boy.
Effectively, I mean, once he got that eyeliner, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely different. Like, things were a lot more colorful in this adaptation, for sure. Like, I feel like that's everything as a whole nowadays, minus, you know, Mob Psycho, as we discussed before. But everything has gotten a lot less colorful and more realistic, or even dark. And like, things that were made back then just used colors so like liberally that it's not a style that I've actually seen very much of recently.
It's very interesting to me to see it animated, because I mean, you have the 72 anime, which is very much of its time. It's the sort of stereotypical old anime, you know, limited movement, lots of shots of just the mouths moving, or everyone sort of just slides in the frame. And if you look at Go Nagai's original manga, it's not too far off, because his as much as I love his style, it's very stiff, especially in the Devilman manga. It's very lots of sharp lines, and the characters are sort of just very posed. Like, they don't feel like they're moving, they feel like they are stuck in that frame. And then you have this OVA where everything is just very smooth and flowing, and the lines are very soft, and, you know, their faces are very round. Even their hair, like you said, have that pompadour look where, you know, in the original manga, Ryo looks like if he turns around, his bangs could, like, stab your eye out. So it's kind of nice to see it done in a different style, but it still feels very true to the spirit of the original manga.
It really just showcases like something we don't get nowadays with the OVA style. Even though things like Devilman are technically OVAs, then you had these companies able to pour so much money into creating these independent works without needing to make it, you know, sticking with television without sticking to television deadlines and all that kind of stuff. Like, I just watching the first episode really just surprised me. Like Ryan said, I did get a very Ghibli-esque a hint from the animation quality itself. Just everything seemed to flow really, really well, and it just kind of is proof more than anything else that I wish that we never had really lost that OVA style from the early 90s.
I mean, the OVA boom couldn't last forever. I mean,
That's
now
very true.
When you see OVAs, they tend to be sometimes even of a worse quality than the original show. I mean, I've had, like, especially
it tends to also come after it's already gotten an anime adaptation, like it's a continuation of the show.
Yeah, it's mostly for promotional material, I think, nowadays, more so than anything.
Like, specifically, the instance I always go to is Future Diary. If you watch the show, just the show, you're going to be dead inside. But then they came out with the OVA because they were like, hey, it might not sell well if people find out that we made all these people dead inside. So they made a OVA to finish the story and kind of give an afterword, and it made everything happy again. But a lot of shows wound up doing that.
I thought I forgot about Future Diary, Ryan.
Future Diary is one of my favorites. Like, I'll always mention it when I can, because a lot of people talk bad about it, but I love that show. Like, I think it's honestly really great. But
I'm gonna go cry now. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, like, And even more recently with Persona 5, granted, that's a whole mess in and of itself. They couldn't get the plot done in 24 episodes, so now they have 2 OVAs to finish the plot. Like, it's just stuff like that. Like, OVAs don't really exist as standalones anymore. Like, they come off of a pre-existing franchise or anime series and then are, like, made as an extension to either give the fans some closure or just continue the story because they felt like it.
And even just the general tone with a lot of these earlier stuff, there was just companies thinking, oh man, anime's bringing us a lot of money, let's throw a bunch of money into a couple episodes and see what happens. But now, like, anime production is so different now, and everybody's so overworked that you don't really get the same heart that you got out of things like this, and all the classic OVAs from the 90s and 80s.
Yeah, there will never be another Gunbuster. I know there's another Gunbuster, but I refuse to acknowledge it.
Nah, Diebuster is, like, not even really Gunbuster. Like, it's too different. Like, Gunbuster just had this whole allure about it, and they put more effort into the flopping of her boobs while she lied on bed than they did into the space battles, and you just don't get that anymore. And, like, Diebuster was not the same. Like, even though, yes, it was a continuation, to me it wasn't.
Ryan basically just said, you don't get that boob flopping animation like you did in the old days.
I mean,
that's what's wrong with anime nowadays.
Like, I'm not saying that it's, like, a problem. I'm just, like, I remember when we watched that, I was just like, that seemed a little too well animated for what it was.
And I mean, I will defend Diebuster to the death myself, but you're right. It's a different era, and even though those are OVAs, it doesn't quite fit the same niche that things like Devilman or Battle Angel or Violence Jack or any of these other things sort of feel.
So, John, again, since you are the Devilman virgin here, and I insist on using that term, we have some familiarity with these characters either through Crybaby or the manga or what have you. So, what did you think of, as you named Akira Fudo / Devilman Greg, what did you think of Greg as a character? Like, how did you react, and how did you feel about Frank, whose real name is Ryo Asuka? How did you feel about these two characters? Because they're kind of the focal point of the first OVA.
Well, I thought that Akira was kind of an interesting character, and not necessarily like deep or well developed, but just the fact that he goes from kind of like this mild mannered kind of typical teen to like, yeah, let's summon some demons, let's freaking do it. It's like, whoa, man, where did that come from? I don't know how I felt about that one, but Ryo was just kind of like the cool rich dude.
Ryo did not get fleshed out as much as I had wanted in this one, but yeah, he was kind of like the token rich dude / token plot device bearer, basically. So I don't know, like, just the whole situation they were in just was odd. I can't find a better word than that, just because it all it was a lot of like world building at first, and then everything happened so fast you're just like, okay, he's Devilman now, and where do we go from here? I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is these OVAs, I guess because they didn't go as far as they wanted to. Spoiler: Ryo is actually Satan himself. So
I did not know that.
Well, now you do. And
yeah, Ryo turns out to be Satan, and the fact that he was saying "my dad" and everything, I'm just like, shut up! You know you don't have a dad.
I mean, sort of a spoiler. I mean, he doesn't know that in the beginning. He slowly becomes aware of his role.
That's
in
true.
All this.
For me, I think one of the problems I had is that even though I think Akira is a little more... He's not as much of a crybaby, and I know that is the point of Crybaby. He is more sort of like a... He's very emotional. You see the rabbit scene where he becomes very... he's like, don't hurt these rabbits. They hurt the rabbit.
Yeah.
And just... He seems more mild-mannered. Like, he's just like a nice kid. And then in Crybaby, it's like, okay, sweetheart, you're about to fall apart, and we need you to not because you're the main character, and it's like episode 1. You're about to go through a lot, so buckle up.
the biggest difference that they did not have in the OVAs that I was disappointed about personally was they did not have Akira very loudly and publicly watching porn in his school's auditorium.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a real thing that happened after he had his devil awakening and Crybaby, is he just like straight up didn't give a huck about anything.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think we see a little bit of that at the beginning of episode 2, where he's just jumping around. Like
It was
really
more
enjoying his
subtle for
powers.
sure. Like his
Yeah.
personality differences were like much less. Like
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't. Yeah, like you said, he's not watching porn. He's not walking around with his bulge in his pants.
yeah.
I will never forget, like, just if I have just looking back on memories of anime in my mind is watching the I forget what episode it was of Devilman Crybaby, just the scene where he's about to start running and this girl just screams, "Look at his dick!" as loud as possible.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know
Maybe
who
had
that,
some of those moments.
I don't know who that girl is, who voice acted her, but I'm just like, I hope you have a good life because you deserve it. Just
Got that-
shout
he's got
out
that
to you.
beady, big Devilman energy.
Yes.
Oh god.
Yeah, there were so many moments like that in the Crybaby series. I keep wanting to say original because for me that was the original, but it's straight up not. But yeah.
Going back to the original, though, like, one of my problems with Ryo is, like, Crybaby does flesh him out. Like, he's got a coolness about him, both in, like, in attitude and, like, he's a little colder, but he's got more of an intrigue. Like, he's, like, kind of like a weird, creepy, like, refuge from Village of the Damned, and it makes it more, like, interesting to see what he's kind of got up his sleeve. And then in this one, he's just so ballistic, and, like, he's just got a gun, and he's just so loud and brash. It's like John said, he just kind of exists to move the plot along, and it's kind of funny because Ryo in the original manga is kind of a meme now in the Devilman fandom because he's drawn in such a weird, awkward way, and his dialogue is so stiff. Like,
It's laced with drugs.
it's laced
Yeah.
with drugs, or like you could hurt someone. That's the point. I mean, it's just so silly. Like, it's like I cannot see the trajectory of how this character starts out this like goofy character to being, you know, this creepy and weirdly seductive character in Crybaby. Like, one of the main reasons that he does everything he does is he has like a crush slash infatuation with Akira slash Devilman. And so here it's like there is that sort of weird subtext between them, but it's like it's completely run over by just how loud and awkward he is as a character. Like, I love his outfit in the OVA. Like, he's wearing like a weird Breton striped shirt and a trench coat, and then this kicky purple corset belt for some reason that he sticks his gun in. It's like, I don't understand the logic of your outfit. Like, everything about him is just so silly. I can't see him as like, oh, this is going to be the person who reveals himself to be, you know, Satan himself trying to blow up the world to spend time with his demon boyfriend. It's just so... It's like, I can't see how these OVAs would have gone if they had continued.
And that just his introduction to the OVA was weird because he's just in the woods and just walks out, and it takes Akira like 15 seconds to be like, "Oh, it's Ryu. What's up, dude?" Like, that whole thing was just odd.
Yeah, I mean, that's how he's introduced in most. It's just kind of...
He's there.
Yeah. He just kind of shows up out of nowhere. You have no idea who he is, and then, you know, the thing happens. He takes him to learn about devils, and then turns him into Amon.
I'm kind of glad that Crybaby did not do the mask thing, because the more I see it, the more ridiculous it does kind of come up.
I mean, it was interesting in a way, but it wasn't really necessary.
Yeah, I think a big problem there is that having watched Crybaby first, I like the fact that you find out a lot of the backstory later in the series. You only are given a very basic premise to begin with. That, you know, the demons are coming into the world, become the Devilman, fight crime, save the world, etc.
Yeah.
But in here, the very first scene of the first OVA is we find out the prehistory and the war between angels and demons. And then you have that extended scene in the middle where he puts on the mask and he finds out all about the devils then. I feel like Crybaby did that more smartly, I guess, like by putting that later in the series, letting it unfold later when you're developed into these characters and the sort of lie they've been living, in this whole canon they've created. I feel like that's one of the major problems with both OVA episodes is that maybe they're sticking a little too closely to the original here without trying to do their own thing, and I feel like the pacing's a little suffers greatly for it, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of the OVAs are taken up with these fight scenes. I mean, like John said, it's 40 minutes of setup for a fight scene in the club, and as fun as that fight scene is, it's not really that rewarding in terms of, when you watch an episode of anything, you feel like even though there's more story to come, in that episode, you've kind of come full circle. You have, a resolution in some way, or a cliffhanger where it's okay, I still feel completed. With this, I'm I know there's another OVA coming, even though I have the privilege of watching the next one, right after this and not 3 years later. But it feels like it's just kind of stopping, the train has hit a wall.
Yeah, that's about how abrupt it felt. Yeah.
And I feel like when you compare this to the first few episodes of Crybaby, where you find out the backstory, he takes the club, and then the whole summoning happens. In the OVA, he tells the backstory. They go to the mansion. He puts on the mask. 15 minutes later, after we get the extended weird pseudo porno sequence with the devils tearing into each other, abusing into each other, then they get attacked. Then they leave, then they come back, and then they go to the club. There's a lot of unnecessary filler, I feel like, maybe because they're sticking too close to the individual manga chapters, which would make more sense if you're reading each chapter of the manga, each little individual cliffhanger. But Crybaby did all of that in one 30-minute episode rather than a full hour-long episode. And that's what I feel like. A lot of times in both of these episodes, I felt kind of bored, honestly. Even in the greater fight scenes in episode 2, it's just it felt like a DBZ episode where they just keep fighting in different areas again and again. It's come on, just end the fight already.
Yeah, the Shiren fight in both adaptations kind of bored me. Because, she was just we were supposed to be together and rule this world together, and now you're a devil man. And he's just yeah, kind of. But, and, she just, keeps on going back to that, and it's just, pick something else, or, get this fight over with sooner. Because,
or rip
yes,
off
you're
your
intimidating.
own arm and use it as a boomerang.
Yeah, that was amazing. But it was just, it felt like it kept on going around in circles to me, or it went a little too long.
I think another thing is maybe not necessarily just sticking close to the original, but trying to show off the animation. Because every fight scene is gorgeously animated. I mean, even the most grotesque parts are weirdly beautiful. Especially, I think those club scenes where you have the flashing lights and that really psychedelic imagery. I mean, I was fascinated just for that. I mean, it's not every day that you see a woman's breasts turn into tooth gnarly things for no reason.
Yeah, that messed me up a little bit on the inside, not gonna lie here. That was just at the next time that I'm looking at boobs, are they gonna come to life and try to devour me? Or is it okay? Am I safe?
Well, as long as you're not Rio and just going around killing random people it's going out of style, I think you're okay.
Yeah, I love the picture of Rio or of Akira behind Rio as he has the blood on his face after shooting. So that has been redrawn on Tumblr and Twitter 30 times over, and I never get sick of it because it is weirdly funny to me. I think we used it when we were talking about watching it. We were saying hey, we're doing a rabbit stream, and I think that was the picture Austin used. I'm good, that was the perfect choice for this OVA, was that image. That's all you need to know going in. Is Rio smiling like a madman, and Akira just being I don't know about this, Rio, gosh. Okay, the second OVA is The Demon Bird Sirin, which was released in 1990, so you had to wait 3 whole years to see the conclusion, question mark, of the Devilman story, even though it's not even finished with, like, the beginning of the whole Devilman saga. So again, we're gonna go to John, our Devilman virgin / novice. What did you think of the Demon Bird Sirin?
Okay, so from my take on it, Akira is still feeling the effects from the previous OVA and is still believing that he is Devilman.
Hold on, sorry. Who's Akira? I only remember you explaining the last one.
Sorry,
as some
Greg.
guy named Greg.
Sorry, Greg. Greg is still feeling the effects from the previous OVA, and over the time of 3 years or a week, however much time had passed since then, he has have a crush on Rio, as was apparent when he went to see him in the hospital. Don't know why, but that just is a thing now. He's still going around fighting demons and whatnot, and seems to have a vendetta against shirts now. Not sure why that developed, but he just is insistent upon himself and, as clear with Miki, anybody else wearing a shirt as well. So near the end, he kind of gets lost in the woods and tired out, and Rio eventually finds him and claims that it's just supernatural, like ESP kind of stuff. And even though to Akira he had like gotten badly, hurt and lost an arm in the middle of the battle, he was able to just reattach the arm and he was just fine. And through Ryu's ingenuity and multiple use of bandages, he was finally able to give him a shirt. So that seemed to be the plot of the second OVA, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
When you mentioned the aversion to shirts, all I could think watching this was like Marlon Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire. like the constant need for him to like be taking off his shirt or to wear like a very tight t-shirt with the sleeves cut off. It's like why is Devilman hunky now? Like, where did this come from?
I'm pretty sure it came from the devil inside of him.
Made me do it.
And like Miki is... and her constant need to be in the bathtub, like, it's very Tennessee Williams. It's very Tennessee Williams meets, demonic superhero. So it's a very interesting concept.
You heard it here first, folks. Sully is against bath time.
If you've ever been to a con, you would know that I'm very pro bath time and wish more people would take them there.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. But yeah, John pretty much summarized it fairly well. I thought that this one was a lot better than the first one because it got to the point and actually did a fair bit of plot crammed into the less than an hour runtime it had. Mm-hmm. And it actually felt like it had a real resolution, whereas the first one we had to figure out 3 years later, if you were watching this in the 80s and 90s, that Rio did not die and he actually did survive, which you would not have thought based on the ending of the first one. But
right.
He spent 3 years in a coma.
Yeah. Like, I assume it was probably, like, a couple weeks time passed for him, like, between...
3 years.
Was it really?
No, I'm joking.
Okay. Yeah, I assume it was, like, a couple weeks because they were all still, the same age. But, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting how they did this one. Like, they did it... The plot pretty much did follow Crybaby to a T, I thought, minus, like, details. But, I thought that I'm going to basically call him Turtle Man because I don't remember his actual name.
Gamera.
Yeah, but Turtle Man took his mom's face because his mom apparently found Satan's body. And so Turtle Man was like, hey, this guy found Satan, I'm going to take his face. And that scene was a lot less emotional, I thought, than it was in Crybaby because Crybaby, it was his parents begging him to save them, and as well as like the other people who were eaten by that guy, and they were just like, save us, and then it turned to kill us, we're not human anymore. And he was like, I don't want to though, I want my parents. Like, I was looking forward to seeing my parents, and like the music that they used in Crybaby was a lot better suited, I thought, than in this one. Like, this one was still good and it was well animated, and the emotional payoff of his mom being like, just let me go, was still great. But it still was like, it was impactful. Like, it was rough, but not as rough, I thought. And it kind of sucks that I was comparing it to Crybaby because that's the only comparison I have. And yeah, but all the other fights I thought were great. Like, Gelmer was great. I call him Cagnazzo because I'm a Final Fantasy IV fan, and there's a water demon in that game that does the exact same thing that Gelmer does, and I couldn't remember his name until I Googled it about 12 seconds ago. So, yeah, and Shiren was also... I've already made my opinions clear on Shiren. Like, I don't really think she does much. She just kind of bitches about how they were supposed to be together and rule this world, and now they're not, so she's like, well, boomerang arm then.
Don't you hate it when couples fight in public?
Yeah. And when that fight pretty much levels a very large chunk of the city.
I do love in the end Ryo just sort of comes out of nowhere to help
like he
him.
just shows up and is like, no worries bro, you lost your arm, I got you man, we'll put it right up.
Yeah. I am glad, however, that the Gelmer possessing Miki was much less rapey in this one, because
I was very concerned about that. Yeah, just the whole stuff. Like,
no. You haven't seen Crybaby, so you don't understand. Miki was stripping and getting into a bathtub in Crybaby because she was at a photo studio, and they told her to clean herself and get ready for a shoot. And meanwhile, they were behind one-way glass and like watching her, and it was really it was gross.
The bath scene in this one really gave me a lot of like Nightmare on Elm Street vibes. Like it almost felt like a shot-for-shot remake of the scene where he like goes after Heather Langenkamp's body in the bathtub with the claw in that movie.
Right, and her family got put into the wall, which I thought was like, yeah, it was pretty much Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, it felt more like a horror movie than like an episode of a show where, something was happening to this whole family who he loves and is his family.
I think comparing this to the episodes in Crybaby, I did like Turtle Man or Jinmin's design in the OVA. I feel like, especially the way they animated his eye stalks, were supposed to be a little more unsettling than what we would get later in Crybaby. Although I agree with Ryan that a lot of the emotional impact of the Crybaby version was more pronounced than here. And going into that fight with Gelmer there, and I agree. Like, the way they set it up was very different. Had a very different feel, and I think that's really the high point of this OVA was that scene in the middle with fighting the two demons in the house.
I feel like the emotional impact was kind of like off-put when, like, he's watching his mom get murdered in front of him, and he's looking away, and the mom's like, "No, I want you to watch." Just like, okay, that's a little weird to say, but whatever.
Well, that was more so she was like, "You don't want to believe that I'm dead, but I'm dead. Here's the proof, so you can actually fight this guy and not die."
I understand that. Just the setup to that was just odd.
I feel like that may have been just like a translation error more than anything, to be honest with you.
And I feel like it worked better in Crybaby just because the whole theme of being a crybaby, we see a lot more of Akira's like empathy in that series than we do here. Where, like we said earlier, he just kind of like a badass shonen protagonist. He kind of just feels like that here. But in Crybaby, we see like the major theme there is his empathy all throughout. And when he breaks down seeing his mom, in that form, and I think we get more of it there.
Yeah, I can see that.
One thing I have to mention is Devilman is nude pretty frequently in this second episode of the OVA, and when we were watching it, Andrew, a frequent contributor of the podcast, was watching it with us, and at one moment, in order to obscure Akira's bodily parts, some demonic intestines land in a pile neatly in just the right arrangement as to not offend anyone's sensibilities, and I think that broke Andrew. I think that was the moment where he just knew that he was not in Kansas anymore.
Oh, yeah, he
And sort of speaking on that, I noticed that watching these, that you definitely see a lot of like female breast and nipples, but not once, not a single time do we see Akira's nipples. Like, they just don't exist. Despite him being shirtless for the majority, they just are not
Demons
present.
don't have nipples.
I probably will. I mean, that's not true because Syrian, like, she's like boobs all over the place. But it's like I don't think I would have noticed his Ken doll-esque appearance had it not been for the the juxtaposition of the fact there's a lot of female nudity present that is there for erotic titillation purposes. But they didn't even get Akira some nipples. Like, come on, man.
I mean, you got to think of the times as well. Nobody wanted to see male nipple back then.
I don't know if anybody.
But they did.
I'm not actually sure if that's really
boobs.
changed per se, but
going back to talking about the designs like Jinmin and the other monsters, I really kind of prefer these to the ones in Crybaby, just because I think they're so well done. I mean, the opening scene of the first OVA is these angels descending onto Earth and these demons eviscerating them, and all the designs are just so... Like, they take from reality. They look like dinosaurs often. Like, even the turtle, our friend Gamera has sort of an ankylosaurus. However you pronounce it. Has sort of a dinosaur look to him, and like some of them look like they take inspiration from plant life or insects or birds, or like they look like monstrous mutations or nightmarish versions of everyday animals, and I kind of like that because it gives them the sort of reality, like, maybe dinosaurs are just how we interpret demons, or maybe, regular animals are just some sort of evolution of these horrific supernatural creatures. Like, they don't feel like like a goat man with horns and a pitchfork is going to come after you. It's like, no, this is something like weird and still based in some sort of perverse reality.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I like the designs here.
There is no blue man with red fins and black underwear chasing you like in the 72 anime. No, it's very weird and grotesque how Akira's Devilman appearance takes here.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the dub at least somewhat. I know that you guys, we didn't watch the dub together, but I did force you to watch a compilation of some of the choice bits. And
oh my god, it was...
Oh boy.
I didn't even dislike it, because it just... I have a guilty pleasure for bad dubs just because they're so entertaining to watch or to listen to, really, just because I don't know what was going on in the minds of American anime studios back in the day. Like, why did they think
that... This was Manga UK, wasn't it? So this is the English that we have to blame.
Western, then. Let's classify it as Western. Why they thought that these, like, lines were okay. Like, they're so horribly written. If you literally just used an actual translation, it would work so much better. I don't know why they didn't do that. Like, it seems like they never did that.
It's like they tried to take every sentence and say, how can we put a curse word in here? Like, no matter the syntax or the emotion or the mood or anything, just if we can find a way to swear, we're gonna do it. And by golly, did they. I'm
pretty sure there was like a part where one of the bullies was like, doing the thing with his bike whip, and out of nowhere he just, for no reason, just says, "Whoa!" And like, we're gonna have to censor that, but like, he did, like, they did just randomly put in cursing for no particular reason that I found.
Give us the bunny kid. Frick you. All right.
I think the thing that kills me is Akira, like, when he's, like, pre-Devilman, he sounds a bit like Roddy McDowell for some reason, and then when he turns into Devilman, he sounds like the Crypt Keeper, like he's going to tell the demons a dead time story. Like, it's this weird, high-pitched... Devilman! Yes, exactly. It's so horrible. Like, it's nothing like he does not sound threatening at all. And then Austin, I feel bad for he's gonna have to like put in the Crash Bandicoot whoa so many times. But I think my favorite line is like the other demons are like, Ammon, what are you doing? I'm not Ammon, he's eating shit in hell. I'm like, what? Akira, manners, please, you're in an orgy. That's not how you speak.
Reminds me of The Exorcist a little bit.
It does. Like, it's that over the top. Like, I love camp, and like the dub is pure unadulterated camp. Like, I don't know if they on purpose were like, this is anime, you know, violent porn comics, we better put in as much, you know, hardcore stuff as possible, or if they genuinely thought this is how this should be presented to the world.
Yeah,
I almost feel like the director was the same one who went on to do the English dub of Ghost Stories, honestly.
See, that one I actually understand because they made a good decision. That show wasn't going to be good regardless, and they made it something memorable. This was just like, we haven't watched the whole dub, and I'm sure it like did an okay job of telling the story, but like the acting quality was terrible, first of all. And like, other than that, like they took weird liberties.
Like, Ryo constantly sounds like he's just trying to get his lines out as fast as possible. Akira, we need to go to this place right now. Just deadpan, straightforward bullet delivery of every single line.
Yeah.
I'm going to make Austin put in a compilation of some of these, and like I said, he's just going to have to add the woe into everything, but you cannot miss it. Like, just look it up. Just do yourself a favor. It is on the Blu-ray. Discotheque Media released a wonderful Blu-ray of these two OVAs, and it's wonderful quality. It has a nice translation. It even comes with an audio CD, like a translation of one of the drama CDs related to it, and it even says on the box, with the infamous dub. So,
does it really?
Yes,
wow.
Or at least, if not on the box, they at least advertised it. I remember seeing the PowerPoint from when they announced it, and it says, the infamous dub, and then everyone in the audience is just like, woo, yeah, because it was like a joke in the, like, early, well, quote-unquote early Devilman fandom, the sort of, you know, wake of Crybaby, like, people went to this dub, and it became, like, a huge gag. So I'm glad that it survives, if only because, like, I'm trying to force my friend, other Austin, who I mention frequently, to watch it with me, because I think he would get a kick out of it, and probably be as shocked as John was.
Oh my gosh.
That's probably fair, and I'm honestly surprised you haven't shown Austin this already.
Every time I try to make him watch an anime, he, like, finds an excuse. Like, we have not watched any of the things I've been trying to make him watch.
I think Austin's too pure for this.
That is a fact. That is not a fact at all. That is wrong. I know this.
You don't know my Austin. My Austin would... Oh, boy.
You're referring to the other Austin. Okay.
Yeah, no.
No, our Austin, podcast Austin, yes, he's a good boy. That Devilman would break him, and I don't want to do that.
No, that's partially why he's not here tonight.
Like I said, if you want to watch this, the best way is to get the Discotheque release. Although I'm sure if you find the Manga UK DVD, its cover is something, because it looks like something like a Meatloaf album cover. It is like the most 80s hard rock stereotypical, like spray painted on the side of the van cover of Devilman that you could possibly imagine. So like if you want to go cheap, you can probably find that. I think we have at least one question that we got about the OVA. Kevin from the Awesome Cast, he asked us, had you seen the OVAs before Crybaby, and if so, did that change anything about your viewing experience? Well, we kind of answered the first part. Me, Tobias, and Ryan had all seen Crybaby first, but John, again, we defer to you, our Devilman virgin.
Well, he can't even really answer that because he hasn't seen Crybaby afterwards.
Yeah, so what do you think you'll watch Crybaby?
I heard you guys talk about it, and so after hearing basically what you guys have been discussing, it sounds like Crybaby may not be as pretty or well animated in certain aspects.
Oh no, absolutely not. It's fantastically well animated.
It's different.
The designs were different. The designs were different.
Yeah, no, Crybaby is still absolutely fantastic. Like,
My apologies.
It just has a lot of differences.
Right.
I feel like this stuck more to Go Nagai's original designs, whereas Crybaby, animated by Masaaki Yuasa and Sai Saru, a lot of liberties were taken with their adaptation as far as the designs as goes. So it looks very different for sure.
Let me explain it like this. Akira was a fan of My Chemical Romance and Crybaby.
He definitely rocks the eyeliner for a significant portion of it. Gosh. And I feel like Crybaby is very modernized as well, just as far as the story is concerned and the setting. Even the design. We mentioned Ryo looking like a K-pop boy. Pretty much just a page taken straight out of that design. But we mentioned a lot of like recent technology. They mentioned social media spreading is the idea of the demons. And yeah, like it definitely feels different. But I feel like Crybaby is a great like modern day adaptation for this classic story.
For sure.
Right.
And
It also cameos the original Devilman TV show.
Yep.
Miki's brother is watching it in like the second or third episode.
Oh, okay. So let me restate my stance on that. This sounds like the designs are different between the two, but I feel it sounds like the story was fleshed out a little bit better since they had more time in Crybaby, and that the character development felt a little bit more natural. Because with the two OVAs, you don't have a whole lot of time to cram that much story together. So after seeing the OVA, I'm willing to give Crybaby a shot based on how you guys have talked about it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's only like 10 episodes.
Crybaby reminds me a lot of like Super Jail from Adult Swim, like in the way it's very like it's a lot more colorful and garish and psychedelic. Like this is very over the top and weird, but like Crybaby kind of goes into more of an experimental look and feel in a lot of areas. So
Okay.
Yeah.
especially the orgy club scene is very like the fact that there's flashing lights, they play that up and make it as much of a mind trip as possible. Like it feels like you've just taken a tab of acid and you're just ready to kick back and see the show.
It really did, because also when I first watched Crybaby, I was sick. Like, I was homesick, and I think it was Marissa who had told me, like, yeah, I watched Devilman Crybaby and loved it. And so I was like, well, I got nothing else to do. I'm laying in bed all day. I don't really have the energy to play games, so I turned it on, and like a lot of people were talking about it at the time too. And I watched all of it. That first episode messed with my mind so bad. I was like, I'm either really sick or this is just naturally trippy. And like, it's probably a bit of both, but like watching that while I was like feverish was very entertaining.
Yeah, so I mean, this is, like I said, tries to stick more to the classic 80s OVA. It is very hyper-violent, very gory, but Yuasa's style is by nature very psychedelic and trippy. So I think that's really where his adaptation shines through this, is taking a lot of these violent fight scenes and making them a little more trippy rather than just entrails flying everywhere in a very very typical fashion. I think that really worked well for the idea of Devilman as a whole.
So would you guys recommend this OVA, or who would you recommend it for?
So I think now at this point in 2019, I feel like you're either going to be in the old camp where you've already watched Devilman, you're already aware of it, you're probably rolling your eyes at us talking about this on this episode, or you're going to be somebody new that just like had heard about Crybaby last year, watched it, like, what the hell did I just watch? And maybe you're going back to investigate these older stuff like this. So I think you're going to be in one of those two camps. So, I mean, if you're in the latter, great, yes, I think it's definitely worth the trip there. It's going to be a different take on what you've seen already in Crybaby, but I still think, as we said earlier, that the animation quality definitely holds up. It definitely gives you an insight into these classic OVA style there. The characterizations are going to be as solid as Crybaby, or even just the modern takes on like LGBT culture that Crybaby sort of bleed through in Crybaby. You're not really going to see here. But I mean, it's only 2 episodes. Granted, they're an hour each, so it's a bit of an investment, but it's not as much. If you're interested in the Devilman franchise, to check this out.
You're basically just watching a movie.
If you can handle older animation style, then this is for you. If you really don't like it, but you're still interested, just watch Crybaby. But personally, I can handle it. 80s animation. I know a lot of people who like don't like it. They say it doesn't age well. And
Most people are wrong.
Well,
Exactly.
They are, but like that's what people say. So if you don't like 80s animation, this is definitely not for you. But if you can handle it, and like even if you just want to compare it to Crybaby, or if you have no other experience with Devilman, this is a great place to start. It gives a lot of insight, and Crybaby then will flesh it out a little bit more and actually make it complete.
I would also argue that if you want to know kind of where Crybaby got its origins from, and you're just kind of curious like how this franchise came to be, that would be a good place to start to watch it in the Japanese dub. But if you're really just looking for a fun time, watch the English dub. That would be my recommendation for these 2 OVAs.
And as a third option, the manga is being re-released here. These gorgeous hardcover collection volumes that have just been, I'd say, within the past year have been put out. So you can check those out if you're really interested to see where it all began.
Yeah, it's 2 volumes, but I think it's 7 Seas who did it. They're beautiful, and they also did Cutie Honey, so I definitely recommend. And I think Devilman Grimoire, which is another adaptation.
Yeah, I saw that
recently,
in Barnes and Noble the other day, actually.
Yeah, it recently got re-released too in English. I think it's the first time it's ever been put in English. So it's a good time to be an English-speaking Devilman fan. So there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
Special mention, one of the theme songs for these OVAs is this really weird very 80s rock song called The Show Must Go On, and it sounds like a combination of Living on a Prayer and School's Out for Summer, and I'm really hoping that this gets put into the episode somewhere, because I just want to, hear someone say, "Oh, we're halfway there, oh, Devilman Prayer." Devilman's out for summer.
Oh my god.
It's very 80s. Like it again, it goes perfectly with the Meatloaf-esque DVD cover of the Manga UK release, so definitely worth a listen. So Tobias, where can people find you on the internet?
So I'm on the internet most of my days, mostly on Twitter, at Reverend_Tobias.
And Ryan, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter sometimes, more frequently actually lately, at what is my Twitter handle right now? Actually, I gotta check that. Yeah, at
I know what it is. It's Midshelf Ryan.
How do you know that, but I don't?
Because I see when you like stuff or when you retweet stuff, and I was like, oh, he changed his Twitter handle, and I just remembered it.
Okay, yeah, my. What doesn't Sully just do my bit for me? He apparently knows my social media better than I do.
It's at Midshelf Ryan on Twitter, and he's also part of Midshelf Gaming. When is your next episode going to be coming out? Maybe?
Probably this week, now that I'm feeling better. But there's a really funny thing about us on YouTube is we're Midshelf Gaming on YouTube with no hyphen. There is another Midshelf Gaming with a hyphen that was a failed Let's Play channel that apparently got salty at us because we took their name. And in one short day of having a video up, we had more subscribers than them. So go check us out. We've talked about PS1 kart racers and launch titles. And the next thing we're going to be talking about, am I allowed to say that? Yeah, I guess why not? We're going to be talking about Spider-Man games. And you can tune in as I do a sketch as J. Jonah Jameson, who is demanding Edwin and Will bring me games of Spider-Man.
So, John, where can we find you other than the Friendly Skies?
Well, maybe sometime this year I'll be on Twitter, and I got a SoundCloud as well for some of the music I've done. I want to try to get back into that. I've been quiet for way too long, so I'm going to try to do more podcasts with you guys this year, and I'll try to be more active on Twitter and just do more things in general, even though according to everybody else, I'm doing too much as it is. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Also, shout out to John. He did the intro theme. He just he did the mid-shelf theme. It's both the intro and closing theme for our YouTube channel, and people have said they like it a lot. So props to John. Thank you for that.
And I should probably mention my handle is the Gentle Jan. That may make it a little easier to find me.
That may make it easier. Yes.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Calvacun. That is CALVA_KUN. I was stupid enough to choose a handle that I have to spell out every time.
You can change it.
But I like it, and it's like the thing I use for everything. So, maybe one day.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
If you get rid of the underscore, it might make it easier.
Maybe. But that's pretty much the only place you can find me, because I'm an old lady and I don't like social media. So, anyone else have any sort of final thoughts on Devilman? Anything else they want to shout out into the void?
I actually have a final thought on what you just said. I would actually think that makes you more of a millennial than an old lady, because it's my experience that old ladies like social media more than most of us nowadays.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Facebook, yeah.
I know so many people's grandmothers who are on Facebook and they're embarrassed about it because their grandmother will comment on every photo they post.
I would get rid of my Facebook if not for the fact that the Rocky Horror community refuses to migrate to anywhere else because most of them are old. So I'm stuck there for the time being. But
I use my Facebook to communicate.
Oh yeah, I mean most people do that too. Anyone else? Any other final thoughts on Facebook, Devilman, elderly people?
Well, thank you for tuning into the social media podcast.
Thank you for tuning in.
I was going to ask if you think Akira would be on Facebook. What kind of Facebook poster do you think he would be?
Are we talking about pre or post Devilman?
Yeah.
Yes,
Both.
exactly.
Pre-Devilman, he probably would not post too much. Post-Devilman, he would probably be like, I found this cool
Check out
porno
Mr.
today.
Buns. Ain't he cute? # buns.
Yeah, and then post-Devilman, he'd be like, I found this cool porno and like directly linked to Pornhub.
Anyway, so that has been it for the third Impact Anime podcast.
Hey, you asked.
What a fitting note to end on. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Take it
Have
easy.
a good night, everybody.